The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Café. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Friends in Recovery podcast, the podcast that is here to help you, a loved one, or a friend get started down the road to recovery. This is the Friends in Recovery podcast, brought to you by the Genesis House. Genesis House, providing a safe, nurturing environment to heal from addiction since 1992. Please be a friend and share our message with a friend on Podbean, iTunes, iHeartRadio, or YouTube. And now, here are your Friends in Recovery.
Hey, welcome everybody. Friends in Recovery podcast. We're broadcasting live from the Studio 21 Podcast Café up in Salem, New Hampshire, and this is a wonderful place, a real oasis. We love it here.
Yes, we do, Mike.
And, I'm Mike Miles.
Ed Chionchio back a second week, Mike.
Yep, 2 weeks in a row. It's unbelievable. We are your Friends in Recovery, and come get sober with us. You can reach us at help@friendsinrecoverypodcast.com. You can call us at our 800 number, 800-989-6504, or at friendsinrecoverypodcast.com. Also look for us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Be sure to like us and subscribe. We would like to thank Genesis House for sponsoring Friends in Recovery podcast. We're very fortunate last week to have Stephanie Dodge here.
Yeah, that was a great show.
Great show.
Yeah.
Great show.
Absolutely.
And the Genesis House has been great. They've been sponsoring us going on our 6 months, and our numbers are through the roof.
Yep.
So now back to Studio 21 Podcast Cafe and our show. And we're very fortunate today to have two very knowledgeable, hardworking, dedicated retired police officers, and they're cops helping cops and beyond.
Yeah.
Ed, what do you got over there?
Well, we got Joe Rizzuti. Joe
I know
Rizzuti.
you're in New York.
I know, Rizzuto.
This is Red Sox country.
And Tommy, you're gonna have to help me with your last name.
Greenhalgh.
Greenhalgh.
Sorry,
All right, Greenhalgh.
Close.
All right. So, like Mike said, you guys, cops helping cops, and we can't see the brochure, but we got a little. It says Greater Lowell Emergency Service Critical Incident Stress Management. I guess we'll talk a little bit about that, kind of what you guys are doing with that piece, and you know, I am a huge component on helping cops and first responders. That's my passion in life. I tell a story. You just have to look it up in some of the past shows. But I always wanted to be a cop. I always wanted to be a fireman. But my drinking got in the way, and you know, I just have you know, I don't understand how you guys run into things, and you know, I'm running the other fucking way. You know, it just boggles my mind. And thank you guys for all your years of service. We really appreciate you too, Mike. Mike's a retired cop, and everybody, all the cops out there listening, and firefighters and first responders. So I promised Mike I wouldn't do a long-winded.
Too late. So listen.
But we wanted to get into what you guys are doing.
Right.
But you have something to say, though.
No, I just want to say this has been a bad week for law enforcement.
Absolutely,
yeah, and maybe you could just touch on that a little bit. Either one of you, whoever wants to start.
Yeah, this week in Weymouth, Massachusetts, we had an officer killed in the line of duty. Unfortunately, shot in his head, responding to an incident. It's the second one in a couple of months. We had one in April down in Yarmouth, down in Cape Cod. Similar type thing, an execution of a warrant. An officer was shot in the head, lost his life. So it's been a tough couple of months for the law enforcement community here in Massachusetts and across the country.
Well, you guys are always in our prayers, and you know, we'll keep their families in our prayers too. And you know, it's sad when you hear that, and you know, that's that thing. You guys run into it, and we run away from it, and you know, unfortunately, that happens. There are bad guys out there, and it sucks.
And along with the line of duty, that's I mean, the suicide rate among public safety. Tom, you could touch on that. It's been our passion, myself and Tom, to try to put an end to the madness. You can talk a little bit, just in Massachusetts. I know this is nationwide, but our numbers here in Massachusetts.
Yeah, we put a very heavy emphasis on suicide prevention intervention in Massachusetts. And unfortunately, despite the work, we still have members of all uniforms taking their life. Just in the past quarter, we lost from 3 different uniforms people to suicide.
It is stressful, and working with cops and just being around cops, it's very stressful. I can tell that. And when you guys come into treatment, where your brothers come into treatment and sisters, they're definitely down and out and in a bad spot. because they always want to protect and serve, and that's what they do. But then they got to rely on this drug and alcohol piece, and that craziness in their minds, and some of them go to that extreme and take their lives, unfortunately. We're always here for you guys, and Mike, you have the numbers. Let's give out your number real quick. You guys, your personal numbers. Give those numbers out so anybody out there struggling with anything, you get a hold of these guys at your phone number here, and give these guys a call as far as anything goes. Let's get that right off the bat and done with.
So the emergency number for our unit, which is the Greater Lowell CISM team, it's part of the Mass State Peer Support Network, which I'll talk about in a minute. Yep. But to reach our team, it's 833-444-CISM. 833-444-CISM. And there'll be someone on that phone 24/7 to take the call and get you the appropriate services depending on what the issue is at the time.
Good. And if you don't remember the number, it'll be in our liner notes too.
And just to touch on, to set Tom up, we're very fortunate in Massachusetts. This police officers in general don't like to talk. And this goes back, we're very fortunate to have the Boston Police Peer Support, the old stress unit. A gentleman by the name of Ed Donovan, there's a great book out there called The Shattered Badge. It started really in 1974 where he seen a big need. Ed's still alive. He's down in Florida, if you're listening, Ed. And he put together a program that's been it's been the footprint throughout the country, throughout the world for police stress. And we're just taking it one step further. We're very fortunate in Massachusetts to have folks like Tom and facilities like your own.
Thanks. And wasn't Boston or Massachusetts one of the forefront or one of the leaders in doing a stress management or stress
that's
stress
the Boston Police Stress Unit in 1974.
Well, that's what you're talking about. Okay.
That's them.
Actually started as an alcohol treatment program, but it evolved into peer support.
Okay. And we have them all over the country now. Big and small units have it. So, and it's out there for the help. Tell us a little bit about, get into the what you guys do, if they call that number, what service do you offer?
Well, it's part of the greater model, and again, we call it the Mass State Peer Support Network. In Massachusetts, we're very fortunate. Every city and town has a team assigned to it that provides volunteer services by trained clinicians, peers, chaplains on a 24/7 basis with a 90-minute response window.
Okay.
And the way this works is it's managed through the Department of Fire Services, which is one of the fallacies that law enforcement has. They believe if they call the number, they're going to get fire service personnel to come and help the cops. It's not the truth whatsoever. I serve as the co-director for the Greater Lowell team, and I did 35 years of public safety, retiring as a police lieutenant. And I serve as the training coordinator for this network for the last 8 years. So if you call as a law enforcement person, you're going to get law enforcement personnel to come and help you. If it's a corrections officer, we get a corrections officer. If it's an EMS or a dispatcher, the appropriate uniform match. And that's the first thing, because a lot of people will tell you otherwise, and it's not the case whatsoever. So under this network, the state sponsors it. There's a series of teams, as I said. We're about one of the teams within this, and they're broken up by fire districts just because they're managed by fire service. That's what they understood. And again, the training is fairly intense. There's a minimum 3-day class that everyone has to go to be part of this, to volunteer their time, including the clinicians, including the chaplains.
So it doesn't matter how much degree you have. You can be a master's and everything. You still have to take this training to understand.
Tom, is that the CISM training?
Correct.
Right.
We standardized on the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation model, which is based down in Maryland. Some people know it as the Mitchell model.
Okay.
And the way it's done is we looked at many different treatment options in terms of peer support. And what we found is this is the most comprehensive for pre-incident, during an incident, and post-incident.
Okay.
And that was an important piece to make sure all uniforms were served. And that's one of the things about this network. When the fire marshal agreed to service uniforms, he made it clear that it wasn't going to be just fire personnel. It was going to be any uniform. So as an example, our team, civilian search and rescue, we're in the hospitals, we take care of dispatch, the whole deal. If you've served or your family needs assistance, that's a big part.
That was going to ask if families have access to this.
Yes, they do.
Because, the families, we have a lot of families watching this show, and they might have a loved one that's a uniformed, officer or uniformed person, and they don't know how to get their families help.
Right.
And they can call and kind of talk to you guys, say, listen, my wife is a cop, and whatever the case may be, you guys will honor that just the way as a uniformed person would call.
And the other uniform we serve, which you didn't mention, is the military.
Military's big, yes.
So
a lot of stress in the military. Yeah. So what out of excuse me, out of all the branches and all the are the cops the biggest phone calls that you see coming in through this?
I think it varies. There's no set. I'm going to see this one more than the other. I don't believe, because they all have stresses. They're unique to the uniform sometimes, but under the uniform, people are people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We forget that. We get hung up on the costume, is what I call it.
Yeah.
And
Very good.
when we get underneath that, the reactions are very similar.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing I noticed, and I'm glad you brought that up, because like I said, I deal with a lot of cops, but cops, especially cops, and firefighters too, and EMT and everybody, and military, but cops like to be cops. No offense to you guys, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mike, you're definitely not like that. I know Mike for years and years, but he knows how to turn that off, and that's all due to his recovery. He knows how to turn when it's time to be a dad, a husband, a wife. Oh, you're not a wife, are you?
No,
no.
Okay.
You didn't do that yet.
My next venture.
That's the next show.
Yeah, next show. They don't know how to turn that. They don't know how to turn that off, and that's important. Is that correct? Is that important?
It's huge. You just hit on something. We're all retired here, and my story is I was hurt and line of duty a couple of times. I come into recovery because I was just sick and tired. It was my choice, and I was the stress officer for my department.
Oh, wow.
And when I needed help, I volunteer, both of us at the On-Site Academy. We're a nonprofit that's been in business for 34 years now, I guess. But the big thing is retirement. The 5-year window after retirement, it's an identity issue. Mike, you originally retired. Tom, all three of us. I had the hardest time of the identity of, I spent, as Mike's a brother MP, I've been a cop since I was a kid.
Wow. And
when Tom, you were with the fire service prior. When you leave this, nobody's giving you a party and a parade. Your identity is you think it's lost. So we're at the on-site in your facility. We're trying to structure programs that we can have the retirees to still have their foot in their game. You don't lose the identity. It's going to be with you for the rest of their life. But it's very important. It's that window where we see the addiction really spike. If you're not a drinker, we see alcoholism rear its ugly head within those 5 years. And the life expectancy, I know Boston did a study a few years ago, really after retirement was 5 years, which is 5 to 6 years was too much.
Yeah. It's you have to learn how to turn it off. And Mike, you learned that. Did you learn that through the program and through AA and know how to do that? I mean, some of the cops out there who might be running on, I'm Joe Cop and that's it, nothing else. Did you learn how to do that, or was that you early years, or?
No, I'm fortunate that I retired as the department's EAP. I worked the streets for 28 years, early nights in a cruiser, 4 to 12, and then I got my degree and my education, and I became the employee assistance professional. So now I'm in an unmarked cruiser, plain clothes, have my office, and I'm helping people. So when I retired as the EAP and as a police officer after 35 years, I was hired back to work with police officers, and I also got a contract with the sheriff's department. So I kind of never really get out of the game. I'm still known and I'm in it, but I can say from experience of treating hundreds of cops in the last 20 years in my office in Chelmsford, that there is an identity crisis when you do leave. I think of Joseph Wambaugh, who was a police officer out in California.
Fire Boys, absolutely.
Yep, and he's written so many books, and that. The New Centurions was a great movie and everything, but there was a cop, George C. Scott played the part, and he retires, and he just goes to the station 3 months, 4 months after he retires. No one even knows who he is. He was there for 28 years, 30 years, and he ends up taking his own life. Well, that was based on an actual police officer who that happened to. And as we all know, we know people that have taken their lives or have attempted to take their lives as a result of this job, and we'll have another guest on in a while that works in the prison. And it's just a very sad state because the accessibility to handguns is right there. You're a police officer, You've been to dozens of suicides, if not more. It's the thought, the suicide ideation, they call it, is in your mind. And I think the accessibility of the firearm, the familiarity with people that have committed suicide, you're knowledgeable, you understand. And unfortunately, the life expectancy of the average male is about 80 years. It's gone down a little bit since the opioid crisis. But the average life expectancy of a police officer is 60. That's 20-year difference.
God.
Yeah, and it's sad.
Yeah.
You know, and it's factual, though.
Well, it seems like from what you're saying, Mike, is that they that police officers are numb to this, that it's just like an everyday humdrum type thing. Okay, another suicide, let's move on to the next thing. Is that kind of what happens maybe when you know, they think of those thoughts? I mean, is that, well, you guys would know that because you guys are answering phones.
I think historically it's always been suck it up, move on.
Yep.
We have calls we have to get to. We don't want to hear you crying.
Okay.
Right.
It's changing.
Yeah.
The last 5 to 8 years, I would say,
Right.
the younger officers know there's something out there.
Right.
There's a model.
Yep.
They don't necessarily know what it is.
Yeah.
But they have a different outlook on this whole career. It's become more of a job than a career.
Yep.
Versus, I think, in our time when we started, it was you tried to get that job because it was going to be your life job.
Yeah.
Right.
And you don't see that the same way as
It's different
often.
now. You're right. In 1987, Tom Fleming, Sergeant Tom Fleming and I went down to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to a seminar, and we were fortunate enough to go down. It was about cops helping cops, and we got some great information. Now, that was 1987. That was a while ago. And, you know, from that, we hit the ground running. We started a business, nonprofit. We didn't make any money. It was called New Attitudes, and all we did was help cops and their families. And then eventually firefighters would be coming over, because everybody's a different entity. You know, I saw dispatchers on your flyer, and that's so important.
Yeah,
I was
absolutely.
a civilian dispatcher when I got out of the Army, and you know what? They get the calls. They're giving life-saving tips over the phone with somebody giving CPR to their baby.
Yeah.
I guess we're ready for a break, according to Ed Sullivan over there. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back. We are listening to your Friends in Recovery podcast live from the Studio 21 Podcast Café. We're very fortunate to have two very astute, knowledgeable gentlemen here. And we'll be right back.
Put that hammer down and check out the Don't Do It Yourself podcast. The Don't Do It Yourself podcast is a weekly podcast where Tommy Two Shoes and No Nonsense Nance sit down with a different specialist every week. If you're tired of unvetted and uninsured contractors charging too much money for not enough quality, you need to check out the Don't Do It Yourself podcast, the Contractors Referral Program. The Don't Do It Yourself podcast is live on YouTube every Thursday morning at 11 a.m. or on demand on iTunes, Podbean, iHeartRadio, or your favorite podcast catcher. Put that hammer down and don't do it yourself. Genesis House is a premier substance abuse and rehabilitation facility located in beautiful Palm Beach County, Florida. We have been providing the highest quality of addiction treatment since 1992 and are accredited by the Joint Commission. We offer a range of programs that include detox, residential treatment, dual diagnosis, a Christian track for people who want to incorporate their faith into treatment, a uniform services track, and we work with most major insurance carriers. Genesis House is led by a dedicated team of administrative and clinical professionals, and we stand on our commitment to excellence in recovery services. Contact us today to find out more about our program. Take the first step and call Genesis House at 800-737-0933 or visit us on the web at www.genesishouse.net. That's 800-737-0933 or www.genesishouse.net. Begin your journey to a long and successful recovery with Genesis House.
Soul Sessions is an intuitive life coaching service that provides a safe place for everyone to get the guidance they are seeking. Intuitive life coach Shanti Syncere Slade uses her powerful gifts of empathy, spiritual connection, intuition, human experience, and conscious listening to provide a safe place to evolve and shed light on the truth of who we all are, brilliant divine beings. Remembering ourselves as spiritual beings helps us to navigate through the human experience with more gratitude and ease. For more information or to book a free 30-minute telephonic consultation, please visit our website at www.soulsessions.com. That's www.SOEL for seeing ourselves evolve lovingly, sessions with an S.com. We can all use a little guidance.
Richie Lombardi, the Step Guy, joins us once a month on the second Tuesday, where we plan to get in-depth with each of the 12 steps to recovery. Come get sober with the Friends in Recovery podcast, and Rich the step guy, Lombardi. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast to get this and every episode each and every week.
Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Friends in Recovery Podcast live from the beautiful Studio 21 Podcast Café. We actually have something, a portion of the show we're doing right now, right?
We absolutely are doing it.
We'll get this down one day. Welcome, everybody, to the Time Takes Time portion of the show, sponsored by Genesis House. This is where we ask our friends in recovery to email us your sober anniversary so we can celebrate them with you. And congratulations to the following. Karen P., Fairfield, Connecticut, 8 months. Susan M., Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 6 years. Jenny D., Princeton, New Jersey, 11 years. Val W., Danvers, Massachusetts, that's up here.
That's it.
Well, not too far from us, 8 years. And Liz K., Minneapolis, Minnesota, 7 months. Congratulations
Absolutely.
to everybody.
Congratulations.
Yep, awesome.
That's great, getting all that time. If you'd like to celebrate your anniversary with us, please email us your first name, last initial, city and state, and anniversary date to help@friendsandrecoverypodcast.com. And if we read your name on the show, we'll either send you a mug or a T-shirt. And remember, Time Takes Time, sponsored by Genesis House. And listen for your name in our upcoming shows. Welcome back, guys. Joe and Tommy from the Greater Lowell Emergency Services. I can't read the brochure over there, but you guys kind of set up a little, a big hotline, helpline. Well, Tommy, you did, and to help first responders, basically.
Yep. As I said, I serve as the co-director for the Greater Lowell team. It's part of a state network.
Okay.
And people can access that network. We're in the process of putting a website up. There's a placeholder website currently.
Okay.
But if they go to www.m, as in Michael, spsn.org, that's the website which will access in all the teams across the state, give you information about the training programs we offer and things to that effect.
And if you are throughout the country and you have any questions, please call us. Some states don't have this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just want to touch real quick. In Massachusetts, we're very fortunate because of the work that they've done to have what we call badge meetings.
Yep.
It's open to all uniformed services, and what differs us from it's confidentiality.
Yep.
And it's also like a stress meeting because you don't have to be an alcoholic to come to our meetings or an addict. You can have one of the biggest things in law and public safety is administrative betrayal. Guys having bosses that are just jerks. They need to vent. You can come to our meetings. In every one of our meetings here in Massachusetts is at least a peer counselor that can recognize somebody that's being triggered, because the big difference between us and the normal AA meetings is that they come in and you can be talking about something that will trigger the guy next to you, and it's important that we have that level of talent to take you aside and get you the help.
So it's like a mental health check.
Yeah, but we keep the meetings confidential. If you have any questions, you can get in touch with me through this program, and we can tell you where the meetings are here in Massachusetts. Or if you're interested in starting a meeting throughout the United States, a badge meeting, which we really could use throughout the country, get in touch with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have a number?
You can get in touch with me at my email. It's revere114@gmail.com.
Okay, and all these numbers will be in our notes. So if you guys miss it, just at the end of the show, just scroll through the bottom of the show, and it'll all be there. So you guys are doing Tommy, both of you guys are doing great work and setting this line up. I guess, Tommy, you're more of the organizer of this.
It's part of the state network. I'm just one of the pieces in the puzzle, so to speak.
And it's wonderful. Cops helping cops, uniform services, whatever it might be. There's help out there, and the badge meetings. I've always been asked to go to a couple badge meetings by a state trooper. I think he has one up here.
Hopefully
Steve. You know Steve,
yep.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's who put us in touch. Steve. And he goes, go see this guy who has a hot dog truck. I know you don't want me to mention a hot dog truck, but I met you at your hot dog truck. I'm like, what are you talking about? Go see this guy.
It's funny. I wrote a book in my retirement. One thing because you get sober, I wrote a book and I needed something to do totally different. I opened a hot dog cart and it's actually great because folks were having a bad day. I have them come by and they sit down and have lunch.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a whole nother chapter, but that's
it's a therapy for you and them.
And it's good food. As Mike knows,
it's good food. Mike does know that. So, speaking of Mike, he, as you can see, and they can't hear, but we don't have him sitting with us because we have a special guest with us.
I don't know what Ed's talking about, but I'm your co-host, Mike.
The Podfather.
I'm the Podfather. Over the break, I dropped some weight and got a tan.
That was good. That was good, Pierce. So it's Pierce VanDunk. Pierce
correct.
VanDunk. And you're the chaplain of the Middlesex House of Correction.
One of them, yes.
One of them, okay. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure this will all tie in somehow.
Yes, we'll make it time.
So Pierce, tell us a little bit about what's going on, what you do, and what message you have for the folks out there and our viewing audience.
So I'm one of the chaplains at the Middlesex House of Correction, as Ed mentioned. I do a lot of religious services with the inmates as well as the officers at the House of Correction there. You see so much addiction in corrections on the officer side and the inmate side, especially with the inmates. I'm no statistician, but if I had to guess, I'd say 9 out of 10, maybe 9.5 out of 10 inmates have something to do with substance abuse, be they addicts themselves or addicts in recovery, be they dealers, whatever it might be, alcoholics, whatever it might be. So much what we do as chaplains is work through what the inmates are going through and the officers are going through regarding addiction from a spiritual perspective, right? Whatever your faith may be. Myself, I'm a Protestant chaplain. I'm a firm believer in Jesus Christ and the power of the gospel to bring people out of addiction when you have the proper help, the proper people around you, the proper services, proper meetings. But a huge component of that is faith.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a big part of AA.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it was the foundation of AA.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was all a faith-based thing.
And faith doesn't have to be. Well, we understand him as God. My God is my God. But people, just spirituality, whatever the case may be, is something that they need to believe until they get to the next step. Exactly. Do you see a lot of that in prison, or people who don't, I'm in prison. Why do I need to believe? I mean, do you see that?
I see some of that, but I see the exact opposite more often than not. People coming into prison and realizing, man, my life is out of control.
Yeah.
Man, I am completely addicted, completely beholden to this addiction. I'm at the mercy of the state, and I really need something to believe in at this moment.
Yeah.
So they come to God. I see so many people who have never had anything to do with faith, nothing to do with religion, come to Christ, come to God, come to whatever your faith may be in that moment of despair.
And that's definitely a step towards recovery.
Hope, I get the tattoo. Hope is, for us, hope is the key.
Yeah,
by the way, we're trying to recruit them. We do have a team. Our network would be nothing without our chaplains.
That's right.
Me and we call them the God Squad.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what we're called in Billerica, the God Squad.
Father Paul, Rabbi Joe. We had some great people that we work with.
Love to meet them. At the Middlesex House of Correction, they call us the God Squad too, and they call me the point guard. I'm the coordinator, so I get everybody their paychecks and make sure that I'm a popular guy on payday. But so they call me the point guard of the God Squad.
So now you guys do work with chaplains.
Tommy can hit that.
Yeah,
it's a big component of peer support here in Massachusetts. We have the Mass Corps of Fire chaplains, which they have to be part of a fire agency vetted out by that department. And we've also had in the past the Mass Corps Police chaplains. It's not quite as strong right now, but basically chaplains that understand the subculture of the uniforms.
Okay.
And when they come, it's not about religion; it's about a spiritual presence and being able to answer the big rights and wrongs of the world.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Absolutely. I want to give a quick shout out to Father Bill. He's a chaplain for the state police. I had the
Bill Hamilton.
Yes, you know Bill.
Oh, very well.
Okay, I just had the pleasure of working with him this past weekend, helping somebody out, and let me tell you, he just kind of dove into it and ran with it, and we got a police officer some help, and
we talk about police chaplains in the western part of the state. Father Bill is the name.
Yep.
And on the eastern part of the state, Father Paul is the name.
Father Paul is the best.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the best.
Okay. Now, do you know any of these guys?
No, and I can't
We will.
wait to meet
We
him.
will. We're
I
gonna
can't
get
wait to
him
meet him. Yep.
We'll get you hooked up.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Ed, do we want to do the sincere moment and then?
Let's
come back
let's
and-
do sincere moments.
All right,
Yeah, see,
let's do that.
and the Podfathers on here gets all messed up.
And now it's time for a sincere moment with Shanti Syncere Slade, brought to you by Soul Sessions.
Peace and positive energy, beautiful souls. I am your intuitive life coach, Shanti Syncere Slade. Welcome to another edition of A Sincere Moment. Today I want to talk to you guys about forgiveness. Something that is so hard for many of us to do. Why? Well, we think we're letting people off the hook. But in actuality, we're letting ourselves off the hook because it is not healthy, mind, body, and soul, to hoard those negative feelings about things you can't even change from your past. Not forgiving is like drinking your own poison, and we definitely don't want to do that, right? So just remember, forgive yourself and forgive others. It feels a whole lot better. It's another episode of A Sincere Moment with Shanti Syncere Slade. Love you guys.
It sounds like a sermon.
Oh yeah, Syncere is wonderful. We had her. You guys should look up the show with Syncere. She's wonderful, and that just ties into everything we're talking about here. And it's amazing, you know, how every time we hear a sincere moment, then we can tie that right into what we're talking about, you know. And it's just amazing. So we love Syncere. Anyways, and she's on every week. She'll do a little sincere moment every week. So. I just want to recap everything with you guys because we're running short on time here. Go over real quick what you guys are doing. Give out the phone number to the website, and then we'll go with you, Pearson, and we'll.
I just want the big message here is there's hope. If there's a brother and sister out there that throughout the country, here in Massachusetts, you need help, it's available. And Tom can touch base on some of the numbers we've got here to get you. Please reach out to us. You don't have to suffer.
No, there's help. There's help, and you know,
yeah.
and Tommy and you know, Joe, you guys are out there helping Mike too.
Mike,
yep.
Everybody, you know,
Well,
you call us,
first-
call the show, whatever. You know, there is help out there for families, as we just learned, and for the first responder themselves. You know,
To kind of bring it all together for this particular program, I think the takeaway is the data shows us that over 80% of suicides have alcohol involvement.
oh yeah,
And trauma and addictions tie together with our uniform services. In the old days, to talk about it, you would talk about it for 20 years and not get any relief. We have some great new tools out there, advanced psychological tools,
Okay.
that sometimes in single sessions, we can knock down the thing that's really driving the anxiety levels or the push
Yep.
that we use the addiction piece to medicate.
Okay.
And so there's new stuff coming down the pipeline. I'm working on something with someone in Pennsylvania that we're releasing this year that people in a detox facility, we haven't had anyone go AMA in the past year with over 400 people.
Wow.
So, you know,
That's
there's things coming down the road to make a difference. So my message, I guess, would be to all uniforms, it's okay to talk about it today because there is something. It's not just going to be empty talk.
Yeah.
We can do something and move it to a place it belongs.
And real quick, I mean, I think and I know, being in the treatment field for the last 20-some years, is that we're finding that mental health plays a huge role in the addiction, and I think almost everybody has a dual diagnosis nowadays. You know, I mean, it's you know, it goes hand in hand, and that's where you guys come in, especially with the police officers, but first responders. It's huge. You know, the mental health.
I think the big piece is, you know, they go to a facility like Genesis House, or they come up to our facility on site.
Yep.
And on site, it's a nonprofit. They go at the underlining issue, whatever's driving the train. But you have to be detoxed first, and you need a good foundation. And that, thank God for places like these places that are out there that understand what we do.
Absolutely.
The pair work is the key.
Yep.
Cops on cops. Fire on fire. The pair work is the key.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, and Pierce, you want to give us a quick summary of your?
Absolutely.
You're the Podfather, so
Yes, I am. You'll see me next week.
You can finish the show.
Well, I sincerely hope that nobody has to come meet me in the House of Corrections because of their addiction or any activities involved with it. But if that is a place that you find yourself because of your addiction, there like we were saying, there is hope. There is hope in God. There is hope in Jesus Christ, and there are people out there who will help bring that message to you, and prayerfully we can get you into recovery.
Absolutely. Now, is there family members out there? Is there anybody that they can contact you somehow, or is that more?
call the if you wanna contact me and just let me know this is what my loved one is going through, and they happen to be incarcerated in the House of Correction, and it'd be great if you checked in on them, chaplain. Just call the Middlesex House of Correction. Their number's on the website, and just ask for Pastor Pierce.
Okay, perfect.
Ask for Pastor Pierce.
Good. Well, guys, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was,
Thank you.
It was wonderful, learning about all this. And again, the first responders are near and dear to my heart. And Mike Miles, we love you. Pierce did a good job for the Podfather.
and let's keep the family of Sergeant Chesna.
Yes.
In our thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. Please for all the police officers and first responders we lost.
Home safe at night.
Well, that's all for today's show. We are your Friends in Recovery, broadcasting live from this beautiful Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. Don't forget, you can reach out to us at help@friendsandrecoverypodcast.com. That's our email. Our phone number is 800-989-6504, and we can give you any of the information, on our website or the 800 number that you heard here today. And you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and be sure to like us and subscribe. Subscribe is the most important. Subscribe so you get these shows every week, and come on, get sober with us. Thank you, guys.
Thank
Great
you.
show. Thanks.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.